Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is an IMRG data webinar. And what we're looking at today is checkout optimization, quite a big topic. And this is IMRG, and we're supported by Locate with this. In terms of who's going to be talking at you today, that's me on the left-hand side. That's Andy Mulcahy, Strategy and Insight Director at IMRG, and I'm joined by James from Locate. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I'm James, a new hire here at Locate, and I'm a senior UX designer.
Excellent. So now you know. So in terms of what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be looking at some checkout abandonment rates split by device. We're going to look at what makes a high and low rate or doesn't, as the case may be. And we're going to have a bit of a focus on smartphones, looking at a few elements there. And then we're going to give you some tips for optimizing checkout. Should take about 30 minutes. So as we're going through, the bit I always forget to add is you have a question facility built into the software you're using. So if you want to ask questions as we're going through, then please pop them in. We'll deal with them at the time if they're pertinent. Otherwise, we'll kind of mop them all up at the end. Right, thank you. So the first thing is checkout abandonment rates. So what this plots here is 29 retailers along the bottom and the checkout abandonment rate they have. And those are the rates from this sample that we looked at for this study. So the average is, somewhere around about the early 30s or so, but there's a big difference between some of these. So the very best have sort of sub 20% abandonment at the checkout, but there's 5 there that get 50 plus of visitors who abandon their checkout. So I think it's always interesting to see, because we're always talking sort of averages and aggregate numbers and things, just to see some of the variety you get in this. So that's that kind of spelled out for you. So there must be something that's going on here that's determining why some are good and some are quite bad. So what does make a high or a low rate? And there's a few ways that we've laid out this sample here to illustrate this point. The first is to put them by product category. So the first one here is department stores. And those are those 4 retailers there. So they're in the sort of 18 to 34% mark. So reasonably clustered there, you would say. The next one is home and garden. What's the rate for them? And as you can see, actually reasonably high for those. There's one that's low, and then the other 3 are really quite high. And you might think, well, that's probably to do with the fact that home and garden would be a slightly higher spend on average, but more on that just a moment. This one is clothing, and there's all the clothing ones there. So there's a couple of sort of outliers, and then there's a lot of them between 20 and 40%. Now, these are clothing retailers, but some of them, they also have other categories as well. So they might sell home, for example, so not exclusively fashion, but just for the purposes of this, we've defined them as being clothing retailers. And then gifting, there was only two of them in there that were just standard gifting companies, and somewhere in the middle. So there is some collating, I think, between them. They're not completely all over the place. But another way to look at it is by basket value. So what we've done here is we've put along the bottom the average basket value that these retailers have, and then the checkout abandonment rate on the left-hand side. And what we're going to do is we're going to plot each of those retailers on here to show you how those 2 things measure up. And that is them. So the colours don't denote anything, by the way. It's just to show that it's a different retailer. That's all. It's a bit of a sort of shotgun, a blunderbuss kind of shot, really. So you might be thinking that the ones that have a high abandonment rate have the high average spend, but it doesn't really follow that way. So the one that is about £110 average spend is actually joint 4th or 5th lowest in terms of checkout abandonment. So that's not necessarily the factor. It might be that the conversion rate is a bit lower for some of those, because if you're spending more money, then you probably do more research. It's more of a considered purchase, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a higher abandonment rate at the checkout. So device then. how does this stuff vary by device? This is Q4 2018 data, incidentally. Desktop, 34.5% was the average on desktop. Tablet was very, very similar, not much difference at all really, 33.5 for tablet. But smartphone, as you might expect, is actually quite a lot different, so 42.8%. There's a number of things that might be going on with smartphones. There's the fact that you get distracted, which is probably quite a big factor, getting alerts and phone calls and emails and things like that coming in. Also, there's the different contexts in which you can use your smartphone a bit more than desktop. You might be out and about, etc. And just general confidence, I think, in using them. I think it's grown a lot in recent years, but I still think there are certain people who would not make a high spend purchase on their smartphone. They probably do it on their desktop, which is a slightly strange thing, but there you go. But if you look at the average spend by device, you do see that smartphones tend to have a lower basket value as well as a lower conversion rate. So looking at the smartphone specifically then, let's just look at that data by smartphone specifically. So here I think there's about 23, something like that, retailers, and these are the rates. So the one that I showed you previously was desktop, should have mentioned that, sorry. This one is looking at smartphone. So if you remember and they're in a different order, incidentally. So just because you have a high abandonment rate on your desktop doesn't mean you definitely have a really high one on your smartphone. And if you remember, the lowest on desktop was about 15 or so. This one, the lowest is about 22%. So there is a bit of a difference. And the highest here is sort of touching 70%. So what is kind of going on there? What's the things that are leading to have a high or low? What we're going to do here is we're going to line them all up like that. So if you imagine each of those heads represents one of the retailers that was in that sample, and then we're just going to look at a couple of things. One of them, sorry, there's the checkout abandonment rate. So that's that just spelt out for you, the graph we were looking at just now. And we're just looking at a couple of things now. One of them is the number of pages on the form that you have at the checkout for a logged in user. And those are the numbers. So while you might expect that single pages are kind of a good thing to use, particularly on a smartphone, doesn't really seem to be the case. So the best performing one there is a single page one, that's true. But I think 7 of the top 10 have a 3-page checkout. What does that mean? It's this thing here is indicated by the red boxes. So what you have there is you have a 3-stage checkout where you put your details in, put your delivery information in, and then you kind of confirm that. And we think that sort of layout just looks quite good. People are pretty used to it. You are aware that you have to put, your payment details in and your delivery information where you want the thing sent to. So we just think that that's something that seems to kind of work for people. They're used to it. It is also something that's fairly standard in a lot of platforms. So you have to change it if you want a different thing from a 3-stage one. Here's another way that you can do it. You can have on the button step 1 of 2, step 2 of 3, whatever. So another way that you can express that. And here, the number of pages for a new user. So that one was somebody who's logged in, who's already registered. And this is the same for somebody who's a new user. So you've got a few more pages on the checkout on average there. Some of them go as high as 5 in this case, and the 5s are all in the sort of bottom half of that. Quite a few 4s, but again, a lot of the 3s seem to be towards the higher end of performance. Now, just as an interesting little statistic here, read into it what you will. If you take those new users there, so that's the number of pages on the form for those users, and then we kind of split them in half like that. The average number of pages for new customers on checkout for the best performing ones is 3.2. And the average number for new customers on checkout for the lower half of it is 4. Now, if you look at the average percentage of orders that these ones get from new customers, so that's another metric that we get from these retailers. They get 40%, and these ones get 34%. So you could argue then that there's something going on there. Of course, it could be that the proposition you have is also determining how you structure that stuff. So I don't think we're trying to suggest that if you reduce the number of pages you have on the form, you're going to get a higher percentage of new customers. It's determined by the category you sell and the type of thing that you sell, etc. But an interesting little split there nonetheless. And just a couple of other things that we kind of picked out here. When we're going through this, incidentally, we do look at lots and lots of different things. Because this is a webinar, we've just put a few things on here today. But there's some stuff coming up where we've got an entirely new study where we've looked at stuff in a lot more detail that we're doing. I'm going to give you the dates and things for that at the end. So whereas here what we've looked at is the number of pages on the form, in the stuff that I'll show you at the end, we're going to be looking at the conversion rate and dropout rate by each of those specific pages. So how many drop out when they get to the delivery information part of your checkout form, for example. How many of these have a guest checkout, right? So you don't have to log in or register in order to buy something. You can just be a guest. 3 of them did that. And as you can see, it's very, very split. So 2 of the best ones do, but also the lowest one. So should you have a guest log out, guest checkout? I mean, again, it's, is it going to work for you? Is it a good thing for your proposition? What's your plan for having one? Also, we looked at cross-device basket. So if you put something in your basket on one device and then you go to another device, so here on the smartphone, you can see that it comes up and it says, you have items in your basket from shopping on another device. And who does that? Absolutely everybody does that. Now, we think that that's probably due to the fact that platforms just enable that these days. It's kind of a built-in function there. And just a final bit in this section, what we did is we looked at the wording that you use on the button on your checkout. So pay now, that kind of thing. What wording do you use, and how does that translate? The first one we're going to look at is place order and pay. So that was a reasonably common one, and that actually did really quite well. So the pink one's there towards the sort of higher end of performance. Place order is the blue ones, a bit more split. Confirm and pay were all kind of around the middle there. Pay now, there's quite a few of those that don't do very well. And then there's the unique wording, which is the kind of white blocks. So that was just a unique kind of thing that they put there. So the reason that we kind of pull this stuff out is because you can see that there are little patterns there. The place order and pay does seem to do a lot better than pay now. But it is just one element on the page, and there's a whole load of other stuff that you obviously need to test with if you're going to get a really strongly optimized page. But an interesting thing there for you to take away nonetheless. James, you can have a look at some tips now for optimizing your checkouts.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Andy. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I'm James from Locate. For those of you who don't know much about kind of what we do at Locate, we're a location intelligence solutions provider, and we're part of the GBG group, which is a PLC here in the UK. We've got a number of offices around the world. We've got majority in the UK. We've also got offices in the US and across Europe. And what we do is we look to help all kinds of companies, from startups to big global brands, and we help them kind of improve and optimize on their checkouts. And we do that through really clever use of kind of location and technology. Most of that is delivered as a software as a service platform as well. What we want them to do is we want them to kind of, get the best out of their checkouts. And we'll cover some of the products today. We do a lot more. So I do encourage you to go and have a look at the website as well. And there are some really helpful kind of useful case studies and guides on there. Okay, so first up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through kind of 6 kind of areas which, this is a webinar, we can't kind of dive, super deep, but 6 kind of areas to explore further if you're looking to improve your checkout. Some of these I'm sure that you're doing already, and if so, give yourself a pat on the back, tick in the box. And there might be a little nugget in here that you want to take a bit of a deeper dive into, to kind of explore and see how that might work for you. Okay, so I think the first thing is to kind of really understand who your customer is, and this kind of sounds like an obvious one, really, but really, if you need to kind of really understand their customer and their kind of what the job that they're trying to get done when they come and visit your online store, and they actually want to go and check out. So just to kind of help us kind of frame this, it's very useful to put these kind of purchases into 2 buckets, really. So you've got like the what we call a non-considered purchase. So these are very frequent. They usually don't cost a ridiculous amount of money, and people shop for these things in a different way. So what would a non-considered purchase be? It could be something like a pair of socks from from ASOS. It could be a couple of books from Amazon. And the whole point of this is, they want very quick, friction-free, they want payments at the right time. And actually they just want to, get in, get the product and leave. And really they just want the checkout to get out of the way because they just want that kind of product. The considered one, on the other hand, that's a little bit different. So that's less frequent. Usually that it costs a lot more. So things that would come into here would be, a larger purchase. It might be, new furniture for your home. It might be, television. It might be, that holiday that you've been saving up for. So customers, we go about this a slightly different way, and Andy's kind of, touched on these a bit as well, which is, multi-channel is big for these kind of purchases. They might be start browsing on the mobile, on the train, on the commute to work, and then they have a look on the desktop or when they get home at night. They want to share baskets with others. So some of these big purchases, they're either buying with, with a spouse or a friend or a flatmate, and sharing those baskets so other people can see these options are quite common. Along with save for later as well. These are purchases that customers might not do straight away. Some people might use the basket as a bit of a saving mechanism. And it's a little bit interesting to see that in your data when you could interpret it as an abandonment, but actually the customers come back later on and complete the purchase. So just moving on to kind of number 1. And this is, we touched on this already, is the guest checkout. And why would you want to do a guest checkout, I think is the big question. Is, again, it does depend on the product and the services that you're providing, but it does reduce the friction for new customers. People instantly have that kind of mindset that, oh, if I check out as a guest, I haven't got to fill out all that information that I would do if, they want me to register. Customers are probably thinking, I don't really know this company. How can I trust them with all this information? I just want to, maybe try them for this product first. And if they're good, I'll come back. So, it is their first time interacting with you and the brand. So you can provide, a really easy guest checkout experience. That's like having a really nice, friendly salesperson greet you, on the first time into a store. And one thing you want to do is don't really force the registration right up front. What you want to be looking for is to position that better in the flow. One of those might be, that you could offer a registration after a successful purchase. So, if the customer's happy and they've made that purchase and it's been a really seamless experience for them, they might be more inclined to actually, register at that point. So just taking a look at, I've just picked 2 examples here of, kind of customers who are doing this pretty well. Again, there's loads of examples like this. I'm sure, some come to the forefront of your mind, but we've got 2 here. So we've got John Lewis and we've got Reese as well. Interestingly enough, it is the title of the form I noticed on here, which is, welcome to secure checkout. They both actually say the same thing. So, there must be something in there, obviously reinforming that kind of security message with the checkout as well. Reese on the left-hand side, so here they're giving you, the option to do a guest checkout, also the option to kind of sign in as well. And it's, you can continue, but there is that kind of, form up front to fill some information out. I think the John Lewis one is signposted really, really well. This is the only thing on the form on that page, which is, hey, do you want to sign in? And it's got that really friendly you know, message around, well, you know, you can check out as a guest, but you can create an account later on. It's kind of like that kind of soft welcome into the store and the experience. So moving on to kind of point number 2, is we've touched on this already. Andy's mentioned this, which is the reduction in form fields. We all kind of remember some of those checkouts that ask for like absolutely ridiculous information just for delivering a very tiny item. And just a bit of research I picked up from Baymar, which is that the average checkout has over 14 form fields. And it doesn't sound a lot, but actually when you break it down, the information that you probably need to have a successful checkout, 14 is quite a lot. It's quite a lot for a user to process. And the more fields you have really does increase the probability of an abandonment rate, you know, due to too many fields, especially for those smaller ticket items as well. Address capture, as we know very well at Locate, takes up the majority of those fields. And if you're asking for all the details of an address and each one of those has a form field, it can be visually quite heavy for the user. And the other thing as well, you see this on checkouts where sometimes the actual internal processes of a company and you know, sometimes the actual mechanics of how that's built are actually surfaced up to the user. And, you know, the user doesn't really want to fill out form fields that help you complete your database. You know, really it should be the other way around. It should be, you know, you're just presenting stuff, the bare minimum that you need for them to actually transact. So again, I've picked kind of 2 examples of some differences here. On the left, we've got Muji, and this is just one kind of section of the very first page in their checkout form. And it's quite heavy. You know, there's a lot of form fields here. There is a little box that says, actually, I am delivering to the same address of my billing address. But, you know, by default, that's kind of what's shown. And there's a lot of replication. There's a lot of immediate stuff for me to fill out. And if I was just making a small purchase, that could, you know, actually get somebody to think, oh, you know, I haven't really got time to do that. Contrast to that, we've got kind of Bloom and Wild. And, you know, they've really worked on their checkout quite a lot. And what we see here is 2 form fields, which is, you know, just give us your name and your address. And that is it's a lighter experience. You know, I can look at that and people instantly think they can fill that out in not a very long, not a very kind of long period of time. And this kind of brings us on to kind of where Locate can help. And one of the solutions that we have is the ability to capture address data in a really meaningful way that is, you know, very, very user friendly, and also helps, you know, companies with the getting some really good clean data on the back end. So we can provide a solution that captures people's addresses. You can have many different options for this. It's delivered by an API. It's a very, very simple solution to integrate into your checkout. And we offer a single line field. This is kind of the most popular one that we do. You can also break that down into multi-fields, and we'll come on to a company that uses that shortly. What does it do? It really kind of enables customers to start typing their address in any way that they see fit. We don't have to start with a postcode. You can actually, you know, do some fuzzy matching on there as well. You can start typing it in almost any way possible, and it will narrow down those options exceedingly fast for you in a type ahead kind of fashion. It also makes manual entry as an alternative. So this would be the primary capture method. We know it doesn't always work. New housing estates go up all the time, new properties. You know, we onboard data exceedingly fast, but it's always very good from a user experience point of view to have that manual entry. And it's very customizable as well, especially with kind of international matching. So on the next slide, we've just got kind of just an overview of, you know, some examples as to how it helps capture really good data and helps people out. So missing words and letters, it's very easy to mistype your address sometimes, spelling mistakes, abbreviations. All of this can be taken care of with our product, which leaves you to just focus on the bigger picture, which is, you know, getting those pieces correct in your checkout in the right order. So some success stories who are using our product. Gymshark is one. They had a sale very recently and saw a massive increase in traffic, and they did exceedingly well over there. And we provide the address system for them. They've actually gone for the multi-line one here. But as soon as you start typing in the first address box, no matter how you start typing, it will automatically fill that in for you. So again, it's that kind of middle road between really understanding how to fill this out, and then we can actually help with the technology behind the scenes. Next one is Bloom and Wild. I touched on them previously. So again, this is kind of 2 shots from their kind of checkout. What single line for the address. As soon as you start typing, in this example, it's a postcode. We start narrowing down those, telling you how many properties are in there. And there's that link on the bottom, which enables you to kind of enter an address manually should you wish. But again, very, very seamless, very, very fast for the users to fill out. In addition to this, we've got some more products that we call property intelligence. And, the interesting thing for this is, especially for those, more kind of considered purchases is, if you're ordering a large item like a sofa, for example, wouldn't it be nice as a retailer to get more information about that property? Is it in a congestion zone? What kind of building is it in? What's the access like? And we're working really, really hard to improve our databases on this so that we can give retailers exactly that information. So not only do you get an address, but you actually get, more enhanced information and intelligence about that. And this can then, help with that customer journey and getting, your products ultimately in their hands faster and better. Number 3, is to reduce the steps. And, we can call them pages, you can call them steps. Basically what it is you want the customers want the product. They don't really want to go through the process of actually getting it. It's just something they have to do. It's a means to an end. Lots of steps, as we know, can feel very time consuming, very heavy. If you tell someone there's like 6 or 10 steps before they can check out, that's, that's gonna be quite a mental load. So really the customer's thought process really kind of distills down to 3 things. It's delivery, it's payment, and it's confirmation. And if we can kind of cover those off in a meaningful way, then, you're on a good road. So for example, I've just picked out 3 on the next slide here. So these 3 companies are doing, hello? Sorry. Yes, that's it. Sorry about that. So these companies, again, we've got, a mixture of, between 3 and 5 different kind of steps. I think the important takeaway here is to guide the user down that journey. The Gymshark one has the most steps, but it's very clear on the information as to where you are, what you've got coming up. John Lewis, again, very, very succinct, very kind of clear on those kind of 3 steps, which, is very much what the users kind of have in their head. So I think, again, there's no kind of definitive, you must have 3, you must have 5. It's all about signposting and just making sure that you're guiding them through the best experience. Number 4, touched on this again, mobile only. So increasingly, more customers are mobile only. They don't have a desktop machine. They do everything entirely by their smartphone. So, what we do when we do design user experience, we concentrate on starting with mobile first. That then gives you a really, kind of constrained view, as it were, on how that checkout would be. You then have to make decisions that what would best fit you and your products and your service, which is, do you go for a single page versus multi-page? And again, you have to do what works right for you here. I don't think there are any hard and fast rules for this. We see people doing, both kind of options really clearly. Be responsive and adaptable as well, and just make sure that all the forms are really readable on all mobile devices. And you can do that just through testing and some really good design. So number 5 on here, we've got kind of some new solutions coming on board that we're working on Locate, and that is using the geolocation technology, built into phones, which is, we're trying to get a really good single tap next generation for our user experience for form. So, the whole idea is that you get quality data, we get the right address, but actually for the user, it's exceedingly simple. It's just kind of a single tap and say, yep, I'm here, pick my address, and they're good to go down the solution for that. So again, this is a new product. We're talking to some really interesting partners about, launching this as we speak. Simple integration again via a single API, and myself and the team are going to be really excited to talk about this in further detail soon. So I think we've just got a little bit of a kind of a fun graphic as to how this would work. Again, tap the button location. So your 2 taps and we have an address field, actually already filled out. So again, we've gone from having, a lot of fields like in that Muji example, we can reduce that right down. The customers actually have a really good experience. It's very, very simple to understand, and you get really good address data on the end of it. And number 6, final one, something very close to my heart here, which is just test and test again. I can't kind of emphasize this enough. You always need to be testing. No checkout should stand still. Everything, kind of should be tested and iterated on. If you have something that works, that's great. Dive into why it works and try and make it better. So how would you do this? One of the things is, obviously everyone's heard of A/B testing. Multivariate testing is a big thing. I know from friends who work at booking.com that they actually run thousands of live tests on their website concurrently. And obviously they have systems built to enable them to do that. But I think the takeaway here is that, done is never done. You can always make improvements. And I think, with the technology that we're providing as well, that will really give you a head start into improving your data capture, especially for addresses. And look at your data as well. Just start to track everything. See where your customers are coming from, how are they transacting, how are they going through the steps, where are they dropping off. And if you can't do a lot of this testing, there are some fabulous kind of third-party companies that will really help you out on this. And, again, if you get a really good checkout, you'll see the improvements. And I think that's it. I'll leave you with point number 6.
Thank you, James. We're going to take a few questions now. We've just got sort of, 30 seconds or so to put in another question if you want. Just a few things I wanted to flag up to you on. I mentioned a bit earlier, we're doing a new checkout study that's going to be, there's 2 opportunities to see it. We're running 2 breakfasts on it. One on the 20th of June, which is very nearly full. But then there's a rerun of it on the 23rd of July. And as I say, what we'll be looking at there is the different pages on your checkout form and the conversion and dropout rates from those. We also have one of our big events coming up on the 26th of June, which is Customer Connect. So they're all on our website if you want to go and register. Just a few questions that came in. Can we give an example of retailers with a good checkout? James, you've given you gave a few in there. Is there any others that you could bring up?
Just trying to think. Yeah, obviously, we've touched on a couple in here. Kind of Blue and Wild, Gymshark. John Lewis as well, always doing great stuff. One personally from me is I'm kind of renovating a house at the moment, so I'm buying loads and loads of DIY stuff. And as a repeat kind of customer of very, kind of like small ticket items, screws and that kind of thing is, I found Screwfix checkout to be very, very good. Where they kind of succeed is, again, knowing their customer, really understanding who their customer is. They don't offer a guest checkout, but what they do is they make kind of repeat orders very, very seamless. So the fact that I can just, look on my phone and do an order in a number of taps because the way it saves my information, I think that's, it's a little bit of a kind of a curveball one, but I think they do a very, very good job of that.
Okay, great. There's also a question about delivery charges and whether they have an impact on abandonment rate. So we've looked at that in a number of different ways, actually. We do a survey every year where we ask 1,000 people for their perception on delivery. And the main reason that they always cite for abandoning their basket is because you don't show the delivery charges until you get to the checkout. But so that's the first time they find out that they've got to pay. That does lead to a high rate. That's true. But the thing is, you have to look at all these metrics together. So by not showing the delivery charges up front at an earlier stage, maybe the product page or whatever, you might be artificially inflating your conversion rate to those final stages. So you might get a higher percentage of people who go to the checkout, but they're going there just to find out what the delivery charges are. So we think, best practice really would be to be pretty clear about it. And we've looked in other studies as well about how you display that on a smartphone. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can display it. So if you want to get in touch with us afterwards, we could send you some of that stuff. You're also asking if there's different definitions of checkout abandonment. So we have set definitions for this stuff when we get the data in. So everybody gives us the exact same information. This new thing that we're doing, where we're looking at the different forms, pages on the form, that will be something that is completely new. So pop along to the breakfast later. And James, there's one specifically for you, where someone says they're using Locate already, but their management team is a bit more traditional in view, I think, and they're saying that they just quite like the fact that you can, the old enter postcode, press button, select and drop down approach. So they're saying, is there any data that you've got that says this does actually provide a better experience?
Okay, so just so I'm clear, the way I understand that is obviously the press a button to get the results versus the kind of type ahead solution that we have right now. I don't have anything to hand. I'm sure that the team have, they've got a lot of data here and kind of use the studies that we do have that improves that, that it is a better solution. The kind of the testing that we've got kind of internally, it's certainly a different offering. And if people are used to kind of pressing that button, it can feel a little different. I think the key there is all about the messaging and the signposting, and as to how you get people to kind of fill that out. Whoever asked the question, we certainly follow up later on. We'll make that available, but we've got some guys that can help you out, especially around that kind of like, how do you explain about typing the address when it's not, not just a postcode and getting them to press a button. But we're very confident that, this is the best solution on the market. But yeah, more than happy to kind of help you out. We can take that offline.
Test might be the thing there, actually, James. So thank you everybody for joining today, and our contact details are on the site there. If you wanted to drop us a note or anything, thank you for listening.